plan for the artist, but one of the mistakes that I don't know if all of us or most of us made coming up was we didn't create a plan for our own selves, right? And so we did so much work until we got to the point where we had to battle resentment. Yeah, where you're like, so what about me in this situation? How am I going to eat? How am I going to take care of family? And I think for most of the guys coming, this is a good time to actually start asking the question, what are you doing? What is your own plan as an individual? Now, everybody here has been in this business for over 10 years. Unless I'm making a mistake. We've made mistakes, we've been broke, we've made money, we've been sad. But I think the first question, and I'll start with Eloka on this one. I wanted to start with Abuchi, but Eloka's screen is clearer. His internet is better. So Eloka, like what was more important to you when you were creating your own plan? When you were saying, okay, I want to manage this artist, but this is what I want to do to my life. At what point did you come to that realization? And what was the thing that was more important to you?
For me, yes. I'll say first of all, it was about the culture, right? It was about the music. Started with the music. That's why I got into the business in the first place. But along the line, I got to understand that I can only do as much, but if I create a platform or if I set myself up in a way whereby I'm self-sustaining, I have more to offer. So I think it was probably my 5th or 6th year in the industry before I started to realize that, oh, you are doing things the wrong way. We're doing things the wrong way, for so long. And I had to put in, some certain mechanisms within my organization to ensure that I'm sustainable. I as a person, I as a business, I as a family man, I as a brother, I'm sustainable and I can sustain my family. So it's very important and very key, even for your artist, because if you can sustain yourself, how can you sustain your artist? At some point, the artist grows bigger than even you, and you might not even be needed in the system. So you have to create a sort of relevance to yourself, to the artist, and to the culture in general. So it was probably around my 5th year. That was when I started, realizing that I had to put things in place to ensure that, I'm here for the long run and not just, for 2-3 years. And when, probably the artist isn't making hits anymore, then you fade away with the artist and that's it.
Yeah, fantastic. Abuchi, is your internet fast enough?
Bro, I'm catching.
Okay.
Catching up.
So, yeah.
Internet is HD standard.
Sure.
For me, to be honest, I think last year.
Okay.
I'll say last year. Because, and I think what Eloka is saying is very important. And so for someone like him, maybe he has seen it before. But for me, it was more about the artist. Then you realize you're 10 years in, you have, and when you think about it, because you're 10 years in, you have nothing to hold on to. As much as the artists want to complain, they have their catalog to bank onto.
Mm.
And you're 10 years in, 11 years in. If I was working in the bank, I would be like a zonal manager. I'll have a good track record. But then last year, it just hit me last year, and I'm just like, what have you, what's, apart from goodwill and relationship, what can you bank on? Yeah. So last year was like an eye-opener for me. So last year was more about, I have to understand I have a brand. I have to monetize myself. Yeah. Because the only thing I've sort of gained is the goodwill the brand has robbed off of me for the past years. But it's not like I have catalog to bank up to. I have things to bank on. But artists do have catalog to bank on too. And so what do I have at the end of the day? So for me, it's last year. And I know it sounds funny because I've been in this business for 12 years.
No, I think everybody has that point where we come to the realization. So I don't think it's funny. Me, I was 8 years in before I realized that everything I was doing was rubbish, right? So, I mean, Alex, what's your experience?
You know how it is now. So I mean, Abuchi, before I start, Abuchi, make you know the lie. This was like 2 years ago. You and I had this conversation 2 years ago. You realized this thing 2 years ago, right? So you had it in your. It had been crossing your mind for maybe 2 years prior to that.
Siabuchi, no, they lie.
The center of the attraction would
No, they
also
lie.
around
They,
the
you will be casted.
Yeah, so I
No.
know we had the conversation. So it wasn't last year. It wasn't last year. I know when you moved into that thing. So for me, it's really basically what I mean, what Eloka said and what you said combined. But there's something I always say, right? When it comes to this kind of conversation, you almost never start off with a plan for yourself. If you do that strategically, I can assure you that. And then let's look at where we're coming from. If you look at what the music industry in Nigeria has become in the past 10 years, it's the leap is amazing. Afrobeat and everything it's amazing. So now we're even coming up with plans. So we set out the plan. We're even more like management is even more like a record label now. If you really ask me, then it was you being passionate about growing a brand. What I mean by growing a brand is let me say what that means. So there was nothing like my company name as at the time I started managing my first talent. There's nothing like that. It never occurred to me. What I had to do for myself was make sure this guy gets to where he wants to go. Right? So as at that time we had musicians who still have, but then it was purely passion. So for me, it hit me. I cannot lie to you. I can't say what year it was, but it was maybe 4 years into, right, or 5. But it hit me that as at that time, it wasn't just for me to grow my brand. It wasn't for me to grow my brand for myself. It was actually also to be able to have a situation where as an entity, a management entity, you can afford to juxtapose the artist's level to yours.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? So it actually helps both brands grow.
Yeah.
So it means that okay, so some random person is not associated to this guy. So if you're going for a meeting or going for a conversation, Godwin, you know this better than anybody else. Godwin's name is not because of what he wrote on paper. It's because of how he handled every situation he walked into. Same with Abuchi, same with Eloka. So and even as at that time we hadn't even set up our businesses. But we were able to individually speak for some of the biggest talent brands in Africa and speak for them as if we were companies already existing managing these people. So for me, yes, it's first the passion, and then it doesn't start off without the passion. It's the first passion, and eventually, we now found out that.
So I mean, for me, I think it's a lot of things, as I think Alex sort of says it best, because you start this industry and you don't know a lot of things, and the truth is, no matter how prepared you are or you think you are, there are new scenarios popping up every day.
You're growing yourself.
That change your dynamic, change how you see things, change how you think. But one of the things I learned is when you start, passion is essential. As you grow, experience helps you develop breaks, right? Experience helps you with restraint to say, okay, this passion is a sports car without brakes. And you will crash a few times until you learn how the brakes are used. Then you gradually know how to put yourself in situations and remove yourself. And another thing I've learned as well is the more efficient. Our job isn't based on popularity. I said one time that you can brand yourself how you want. if you are not competent, forget it. All the brand you want to build is based on work done. So at the end of the day, even if you're planning to set up a business for yourself, which wasn't something we thought about, because the difference with this conversation is we're not removing the essential parts of being a manager, which is getting the job done. However, we're saying while you're doing that, put in mind that at some point you're going to start paying taxes. Put in mind that at some point you're going to start thinking about the business of how you can succeed and sustain yourself. You're going to start paying staff. You're going to start covering costs. Some costs that are even associated with the artist. Right? Right? And the more you understand the process of doing these things, the easier it becomes for you to deal with it. It's not like, I know how many times I've woken up and I'm like, wait, so all my commission, I've spent it. I've spent it on this artist, just sorting problems and trying to solve things that don't concern me, right? But when you learn how to run a business, when you have an accounting system, you're able to see what goes out, what comes in, and you're able to put brakes on things. I know how many times I've said to an artist, I'm going to pay for this, but here's a small document for you to agree that I'm going to take it from the next payment coming in. Those subtle conversations help you balance so that you don't get broke. You know what I mean? So those are the things that we wanted to talk about.